They're gonna, if they do it, they're gonna take Zeratul Falstad,
Hmm.
because they're gonna want to be in a position where they can't get denied the nuke pressure with VP, which is VP is pretty much the only way to deny the nukes. And that 5 seconds of delay from VP gives you essentially 8 free seconds on core between VP and Sync. And Gust is another way of sort of negating the nukes.
Right.
It's a little bit more difficult because False has to be there at the right time and have Gust available, but it gives you another couple seconds on core. And False had single target damage with his W,
Hmm.
and his auto attacks is quite high. So those are the heroes that like really facilitate the race the most, and they're the heroes that deny it the most. So if we see it, that's what we're gonna see. And they're not suspicious, right? Falset's a really good global.
Yeah.
Zeratul's a pseudo global. He can 1v1 really well. 1v1ing around nukes, especially in the late game, is really important. It's not scary to see those picked up because you're like, oh, that's standard.
eStar just doesn't want to play against the Zagara, it seems. Because Zagara, I think at this point, eStar played so well in quote-unquote standard games to their liking that they don't want to get surprised by any sort of constant harassment and split pushing. So banning the Zagara away, who gets an insane amount of value on Warhead Junction due to the side of the map with the Nidus Worm, I think it's a safe call, and so far it hasn't really done them any bad, especially if you compare it to the last game. They also banned Zagara there. SPT, on the other hand, they go for a Zarya, which is a rather neutral pick, and I don't think it immediately leads to the conclusion that they want to go for a Morales cheese. If you want to go for a cheese comp, though, you're probably going to want to pick a Morales, who's the core component, relatively late, so you don't give away your strategy like right off the get-go.
Yeah, and again, there's no guarantee that they're going to do that. It's just the sort of thing I think they would do. I'm a little bit surprised that they let eStar have Volatastar, though. There are some instances where eStar has actually run this comp better than L5. SCSC is considered one of the best Vol players in the world, and there's people who say that eStar does it better.
But then you have people like
L5.
Xing Si, who is considered to be a crazy good Vala too.
So I don't understand the decision, and obviously they had to do it. If they're going to let one shielder through the draft, each team gets a shielder, and then you're sort of at parity. Top teams say that Zarya is harder to play, but you can potentially get more value out of her than Tass. But Tass is just so good with Vala and Tracer in particular, because the auto attack damage heals them for so much. I don't know if this is the map where you want to have this dynamic, and it's going to come down to how well SPT manages their early game, particularly their tri-lane. If they can get any sort of early game advantage, maybe they can just snowball the map, but it's going to be very difficult.
Global mobility is key. SPT already secured themselves a potential stage dive. Dehaka was banned away, so it wouldn't surprise me if they actually wanted to get rid of Falstad too, who's still available, hasn't been prioritized from these Chinese teams at all, which is almost mind-blowing, because I think in Europe and NA, this would have not happened. Now, for the second banning round, they need to consider the fact that eStar is going to pick first, so if they truly want to deny them all the global mobility there is left in the game, they're just going to go for a Falstad, but they ban Illidan instead. I mean, I'm not willing to consider Illidan a global one. Of course,
but
he
in
does.
the Chinese meta, he is.
Yeah,
they always go hunt. And you gotta the camps on Warhead Junction. These are the StarCraft camps,
right?
Yeah, quite strong. If you have an Illidan constantly doing camps, and then you can always hunt into the fight. He's near like the mid part of the map, right? He's always near one of the camps, and that means he can hunt into pretty much anywhere in that middle section, which is where the fights tend to break out. It's always they're right near the nukes. It's right near Vision. It's near bottom boss, which tends to be the most contested one. A lot of people forget there is a top boss as well. And that's how the Chinese play Illidan on this map. It's how they played Illidan on Sky Temple back in the day. It hasn't really changed for them. That is a heavy carry the Vala comp on a very big map.
Wow. Yeah, we see Double Angel getting deployed here on Forehead Junction. We see an Oriole and a Turiel for eStar. That is a lot of protection for Avala. Shields galore, basically. Then we have the Crystal Aegis on top. And we see the Lost Vikings now as a response from Super Perfect Team. The Lost Vikings are a hero that we totally forgot about. The larger the map is, the more value you can get from those little buggers. And consider the fact that each of those Vikings is potentially able to carry one nuke at a time. You can get a lot of sneaky value in. Same goes for the mercenary camp that you touched upon earlier, Cavalier. Vikings are really good at stealing some of those and empowering them if they go for the respective talents.
This patches a major weaknesses of Hammer as well. Hammer's major weakness in the mid game is that she rotates extremely slowly because she doesn't have a mount herself. But if you never have to rotate because Vikings are, doing everything for you, they're gathering nukes, they're delaying nukes. Eric at level 4 picks up Eric the Swift. He'll be able to delay nukes 1v1 pretty much forever with the health regen. And eStar drafts a team that doesn't want to be apart. Vala, Ariel, Tassadar literally want to be together 100% of the time. So they're going to have Tyrael in a lane. They're going to have Falstad. They picked him up there in a lane. This is going to be a 4-man that is arguably has the best early game hero in the entire game in the form of Zarya against the strongest 3-man going into the mid to late game. So who wins that early on? And how can you get a tempo advantage? Can you get a tempo advantage with the Vikings that actually puts you ahead and Vala doesn't just eventually bury you?
I can tell you one thing, Cavalier. With Tyrael and Falstad deployed on the side of eStar, they're the ones who are going to dominate boss fights later on. With the Holy Ground, with the Mighty Gust, I don't think there's any way, even with the Zarya and the Expulsion Zone, that SPT can go for those longer team fights around the boss area because they're not going to get it. If eStar doesn't misplay heavily, they're not going to get it. So already this could be a potentially game-deciding factor for eStar to capitalize on later.
It is difficult to do, but they don't have a cleanse support, so they can't cleanse the Tyrael off of the Expulsion Zone, which means that Tyrael
they could have Sanctification, though.
They could have Sanctification. That is, Sanctification can be interrupted by the Expulsion Zone if you time it perfectly.
Yeah,
but
it's really hard to pull off.
It's really hard to do, and with Heroic Reforging at level 4, Tyrael essentially gets 2 chances to hold the ground a point if he's really, really, really on the ball with the way he times it out, and he hits the first one perfectly, like right before the boss dies. So, better boss control heroics on a map where bosses can be the win condition.
Yeah.
eStar has better late game across the board. That's pretty scary.
It's very scary indeed, and I'm not fully convinced on the impact of the Vikings here on this map. Sure, there are maps where Vikings were considered to be like top tier, especially Towers of Doom and Garden of Terror. However, one of those is no longer in the official map pool. And let's take a look at eStar's roster once again. We see it now on the screen. Do they have a lot of Viking hunters, if you will? I think so. Falstad is considered to be one of the prime opponents or the prime counters to a Viking. If he flies in from an unexpected angle, he can potentially kill Eric and Balog in particular very, very quickly. They don't have anyone like Zeratul, though, and they don't have anyone like Dehaka to further reinforce that kind of playstyle. But do you think that Falstad is going to be enough to keep the Vikings in check?
I think Falstad is going to be enough to keep the Vikings in check in the very, very early game, but going into the mid game, being the only global and having 3 people who basically always have to be together to be 100% effective, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him to deal with essentially 2 lanes of push, because Tyrael is not going to do the absolute best. He did go, that's a Viking going down already. He did go Purge Evil at 1, so Tyrael actually, especially once he hits 7 with Reciprocate, will have kill pressure against the Vikings if they're not paying attention, but right. Hammer is extremely low in the bot lane, and even in the 4-man, they're essentially losing the cooldown exchange in the 4v3 because of how powerful this trifecta is. eStar is dead, but not. That is the Angel's Grace right there, saving him.
Insanely close. I'm just gonna refresh my stream real quick because I think you're like 2 or 3 seconds ahead of mine. So sorry guys, we're just gonna do this real quick. No worries, we're gonna be with you in a bit. Cavalier's gonna keep you up to date what's happening.
That is a Viking going down again, and we talked about this. Tyrael does have kill pressure against the Vikings if the Vikings extend over too far, which means Tyrael can zone them out of experience unless he commits and risks that death, which did happen. But the rotation on point, he rotated another Viking to take the place, did not miss any soak. Tyrael's starting to lose ammo in the mid lane, starting to get that damage, and we're finally starting to see Hammer in the bottom lane take a tower down, and now he's in a position to siege up. He's being protected, and SPT is taking the structurally by a very tiny amount, but Falstad actually starting to kill the towers in the top lane. They have to get the fort in the next minute and a half to stay even, given the eStar's pressure.
All right, so once again, sorry for the short interruption here, guys, but I just wanted to make sure that both of our streams are on sync. Now we see that Sergeant Hammer is getting pressured a little bit, but the support, the outstanding amount of support here from Melody C and ZZH is also quite as admirable here. We've seen similar comms from Gelforce Esports in NA as well, where it's all about protect the hammer with a couple of shields, a couple of heals, and so far that seems to work for SPT in that early game phase here. Now, by the same token though, the protection for Vala is also not to be underestimated. Xingxi, one of the strongest ranged assassins players in the world. I really don't hype him too much here because he's really that good. He's going to be the backbone of eStar's comp here, I feel. Like, he adds most of the team's damage, he adds most of the team's energy and healing power. So, so far, almost gets the Malfurion here.
Melody C is in a bad position, though. He had to go down to juke the damage. He does have a shield available, but he's going to get...
I think Melody knows he's going to die.
Into a wall, and he's just dead. He did basically save the Malf by distracting there, but he died for it anyway. I'm not sure if I think I prefer to lose a Zarya over the Malf in the laning phase of the game, but Malf would have had to back anyway, so it's a pretty close call, given the fact that one of them is guaranteed to die regardless, and they didn't get the fort, so eStar is actually pulling ahead in experience. This is not the worst thing in the world. Vikings are not an early game hero. Their advantage tends to start to shine at level 13 when objectives get stronger and stronger and stronger, and you can continue to soak while your 4-man contests, especially split objectives. But
on the flip side, though, you don't want to fall behind either, or you don't even want to be on the same level
against Sanctification.
Yeah. You definitely want to make sure that you get at least 1 or even a 2-level lead early on with the Vikings. As long as you're doing, or as long as you're staying equal, if you're not on the Vikings team, you're basically doing a good job, because the Vikings lose a lot of momentum the later the game gets.
And we're just hoping. We're hoping that SPT can get to like the very, very late game. If they can get to 20, and each Viking has Fury of the Storm, and then suddenly is pushing every lane as hard as like a normal specialist would be in the mid game, then eStar does not have the tools to deal with that level of push. We're going to see Melody C overextended on Zarya going down here again, Hammer going down as well. And they're not managing their cooldowns correctly. Zarya is too far forward.
I think you're actually still a couple of seconds ahead, and you just spoil all the fun for the viewers because you announced 2 kills when they weren't even happening on my screen. So maybe, sorry about that, guys. But Cavalier, can you maybe just pause the stream for 2 seconds or so and then continue? I think that could maybe fix the issue.
Let me see if that works.
Yeah. But once again, we see the overextension that Cavalier was talking about. Like Zarya, once you are out of position, you can run away as a Zarya because you have no mobility tools at your disposal. That's why you will sometimes see Zaryas just dying standing and not moving at all, because they know that they can never make it out alive just by running. And so far, eStar really dominating this early phase of the game here. 5 minutes in, and they have more than 50% of the level lead here. And that's probably going to be the reason why they're also going to hit 10 much quicker to get another big boon in their favor. Xingxi now, look at Xingxi. He's the player to watch. He's going to get pampered by both Oriel and Tassadar 24/7. Now, a big misplay, though, from Falstad, flying in and getting taken out immediately. That's the kind of play you don't want to make as a Falstad. So it's better to fly in a little bit too safely rather than in the middle of the enemy team. Unfortunately, though, the map is so large that sometimes when you press flight, it's too late to actually cancel it, and the distance is so large that the enemies are just going to position themselves so well.
And the teams are relatively even across the board here. Neither team's actually lost a fort. Both have significant damage to multiple walls. eStar's a little bit ahead in structures, and therefore is going to hit 10 first. The extra kills obviously helping as well. And we're going to see, again, Hammer sieging up, trying to get some free damage onto the fort, but eStar is going to secure the first fort here. And 3 nukes to 1. So out of that 4 nuke phase, eStar got 75% of the nukes.
Yeah.
Again, Vikings start to really be strong at pushing lanes around 13 when they have jump, and then they get stronger and stronger and stronger at it. They are a late game hero, but you have a hard time outscaling Tassadar, Vala, Falstad.
Yeah. Also, their bribe talent level 1 hasn't really come into effects like at all. We haven't seen one of those sneaky bribe attempts in the enemy half of the map. We see eStar in full control of their own mercenary camps as well. And we see Turiel, by the way, going for an extremely engage-heavy build here with Judgment at level 10 and the follow-through talent at level 7 as well. So he's going to try to blow up individual people as quickly as he angely can. And this is a style that we've seen during the Eastern Clash a little bit, and I really, really like this aggressive style with the new Tyrael, who isn't innately as tanky as he used to be, so going for the offensive route a little bit more is oftentimes the way to go these days. Turiel going in deep, H falling in the process though. Now his Archangel's Wrath is going to blow up Zarya, Rippy Schmippy, and now Misaka on the run on the ETC here. Queen Xiao is trying to get away as well. The nuke coming down, only hitting the wall though, but zoning out Malfurion, who is not going to be able to run away in time. You can see 2 nukes in the background. 2 nukes ready to be picked up by eStar.
That's such an odd choice to go for Judgment for this heavy Vala carry comp. I guess they're just hoping, maybe that's kind of an engage mechanic, kind of a peel mechanic as well for eStar. But follow through is such an unusual pickup because if you do the math on that, Reciprocate actually does more damage and it's bursty. If you pre-shield and then Judgment someone, you can actually kill several of the squishy heroes in the game with just that damage from Purge. And there's not the opportunity to save them because Reciprocate is much burstier than Fall Through. Fall Through needs 3 to 4 seconds to get its full value, or Reciprocate, if you time it out correctly, is basically instant. So that is a very new, and we're even going to see the Angelic Smite talent at 13.
It's all about basic attacks at that point.
These don't stack multiplicatively. These stack additively. So there's not like this is better because you took follow through. It gives you the exact same bonus regardless. So this is just a strange build.
I can see this getting some value against the Vikings though, because there's naturally going to be more heroes for Tyrael to hit on. And especially, I think they're actually going to use Tyrael as some sort of anti-Viking counter hero as well. Because his basic attacks are going to hit so hard that poor little Balog is not going to make it out alive unless they get the Auric ability to save him. But I think this is basically just capitalizing on the fact that there are so many bodies on the battlefield for SPT that Tyrael is going to get much more value in from the Angelic Might here.
We're going to see Melody C start to do something alone as Zarya, which is not something you usually ever want to see. Because you're essentially missing a third of your kit at that point. But she can do this. She can actually solo boss. Her shield is available for the duration of the boss's attack, and then he switches over to the Banelings, which you can just dodge. So Zarya can solo boss, especially.
Are they going to spot this though?
And she's just going to casually steal it. I casually got boss solo as Zarya.
Very nicely done by Zarya, but here comes eStar. The fall set gust was good. Zarya kind of low here, sitting at 50% as well, but Tiger on the fall set also in trouble. He's carrying a nuke as well, so he doesn't want to die. Tyrael Judgment goes down in the backline, and Oriel smacks that Malfurion against the wall. Another nuke falls. Falstead no longer in the game, but I think Xingzi should be able to pick that one up. They're going to take care of this fort first, though, and Zarya, Melody C, I think, is going to fall in the process. X here on Tassler, making sure that everyone stays alive. Still, 3 nukes to 0 in favor of eStar, and this game is looking better and better for the favorite team here. Misaka, I don't think, is able to pick up that last remaining nuke, but we saw a BFG go down. I don't think it hit anyone, though. The cameraman, unfortunately, just decided to just leave us in the dark here. We see a very questionable mosh pit by Misaka. I don't think it got him any value, and the cow also bites the dust here. So individual mistakes, heavy individual mistakes here on the side of SPT now.
It essentially bought him 4 seconds on his power slide cooldown, so maybe he could get away as a result of that. Maybe Hammer would get there in time to make something happen, but neither of those happened. And we're going to see a huge amount of damage going on to Malfurion. Again, he tries to ice block the strafe, but eStar is just picking SPT apart.
eStar,
they're mispositioned constantly. They're fighting in the wrong situations. SPT is supposed to be the bad macro good teamfight team. That's always been their strength. eStar is better at team fighting and has better macros, so they're outclassing SPT in every single way this game. Yeah,
and you mentioned Macro Cavalier, and I think there is hardly any other map where macro comes in, or macro becomes important than Warhead's Junction, because the map is so large, there's so many objectives to take at the same time. Mercenaries, bosses, nukes. You constantly have to make sure that you're going for the most impactful decision at all times, and sometimes it's really hard to do that. Sometimes even the best teams in the world will struggle making calls on this map. Like, do we go for a boss now, or is it better to push with the nukes? Do we go for a mercenary camp, or do we deep-push lanes? Like, there's so many things you need to consider on this map, especially as time goes by, that oftentimes teams just struggle, and they will lose games that they normally wouldn't have lost otherwise.
It's absolutely insane to see this happening against Vikings in particular. Like, the Vikings keep dying. That's a beautiful judgment, but Ice Block is available. It does manage to juke it.
Yeah, unfortunately you're still ahead a little bit, but we get to see the action right now as well here. Tyrael going deep, the roots following up here as a disengage tool. So SPT once again safe for now. They do lose the Mercenary camp, though, the Bruiser camp, that is. And the StarCraft Bruiser camps are some of the deadliest camps you can possibly imagine. Like, if you don't pay attention to those guys, they can single-handedly take down keeps here, similar to the Fallen Shaman camp on the Diablo maps. Now we get to see eStar going in for the top boss. As we saw earlier, the top lane is already kind of weakened, while at the same time the bottom lane needs to be defended against the mercenaries, because the keep has already taken quite a lot of damage. And I don't think SPT is aware of eStar taking the boss, or if they are, they have no chance of actually denying this, so they're not even trying.
No, the hammer wasn't going to be there in time, and as essentially their solo damage dealer, if your solo damage dealer is not going to be there, you can't make it happen. They do get the pick onto Falstad, though they use Mosh Pit. They do use it, and that is going to be Falstad going down. They get that nuke. They're probably going to lose top keep to the double nuke plus the boss here, but this can't be game. eStar can't end the game at this point without the Falstad.
No, but once again, I think they actually made that decision on purpose to lose a hero for the sake of destroying a lane. With 2 nukes, 1 nuke still in possession of eStar, the boss just waltzing in and saying hello, and they're even forcing a defensive nuke out of SPT, and every nuke that is used defensively is a big win already, because you're basically not going to have to worry about potential backdoors anymore with the Vikings, for example, and trading those nukes is really, really good for eStar. They still have 1 in their possession too. They basically control every single lane right now. The Vikings just can't make an impact, can't leave a mark here at all. They're not stealing mercenary camps. They're not split pushing. They're not adding anything to the team fights either. So I don't think that SPT should have gone for such a macro-heavy team comp when one of their greatest weaknesses, like Cavalier pointed out times and times again, was the macro.
Again, this comes down to identifying your strengths and weaknesses as a team. SPT's strength is team fighting. That's really what they excel at. But they might have been afraid that they weren't good enough at team fighting, even though it is their strength to beat eStar with it. So they were like, well, let's just pick a map that maybe we've practiced and they haven't, because this is not a popular map in any region. Teams don't practice it very often. eStar are playing very aggressively here. They're trying to make sure their lanes are all pushed in, but they're sort of hunting around for a team fight potentially. They don't have to do this. They could just soak 20 and pretty much guarantee the win. Yeah. But they're confident that they can take this game. SPT has not presented any threat at all so far this game, really. And so they're just like, yeah, we can do this. 14-5 kills. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, Falstad, of course, can join us at any given moment here as well, as long as he has flight ready. And SPT, I think they're going for a Hail Mary maneuver. They know exactly that the only way they can hope to start a comeback is if they win a decisive team fight. And the best way to do that in this very moment is to bait eStar into fighting for boss control. But I think at this moment they realize they're going to be 20 soon, and we don't want to risk anything here. The Vikings are good at defending for sure, but even the Vikings can't really mess with can't mess with a Falstad, excuse me, for too long. So now they're being pressured by 2 lanes. Here comes the engage from Turiel, though. Judgmenting in, but not getting any value. It's definitely not the kind of judgment you want to have, but I think at this point it's more about stalling the enemy team and not allowing them to defend, rather than, securing a kill.
It's so weird to see Wing play so many different heroes in these drafts. It looks like he was the bruiser for SPT, and now he's on Vikings. And you got to question comfort in this case. We do see the 20 picked up. That is the Judgment upgrade, by the way. Angel of Justice is now on a 30-second cooldown, which means that it's going to constantly get used. And if you're actually going to go Judgment,
here he comes again.
This may be the default talent.
This is looking pretty good. We also see the Twilight Archon just never expiring, really, as long as Z just keeps auto-attacking. So good job here by eStar. They're having exceptional late game control with Angel of Justice and Twilight Archon, and they're not backing off. They're continuing the pressure. The core goes down to 96. No shields available anymore, but ETC going into the last second attempt here. Here comes the BFG, and this might actually look really good for SPT. They get 1 kill, 2 kills almost, no, but Xingzi survives thanks to the effort of Oriel, and we can really see how Oriel continues to be the perfect and ideal match support for an exceptionally good Vala like Xingzi. We see another engage coming in from Turiel with that Archangel of Justice at level 20. He has in his superior range here. No interrupts ready right now. Might this be enough to finally destroy that Oriel? No, it is not. And this teamfight just won't stop. Xingzi chasing down Sergeant Hammer, takes her out. Falstad nails it as well, and this might be the dying breath here for SPT in that series. If eStar wins this, they have the advantage and they have the upper hand. 3-1 is what we're currently looking at, but can they make it? Another... Okay, Cavalier, how many times have we seen a single judgment in
4.
one team fight? 4 times.
4. It was 4 judgments and a single fight. And it's a really good upgrade, honestly. The upgrade
it's really good.
Is the best reasons to
Oh
go
my God,
for judgments.
CC, he can make it.
they bring the Vikings actually hold the core. Oh my God!
Can't believe this.
Spin to win. Tassadar was dead. That was a big part of it. He is back alive now. And the Vikings are going to be able to split up, grab these nukes.
Whoa.
The core is at 23% though. And the core at 23% on Warhead Junction is basically a dead core.
Yes.
Because if you get near it with nukes, you basically cannot save it. Tyrael's death does almost 8% right now at this level. So SPT basically has to pick a fight as far away from their core as possible until the game ends. They cannot let eStar move around the map and not fight them.
The moment, like, eStar still, despite losing 3 team members, or 4 team members even if you count Tassadar as well, they still have so many winning conditions left. They could go for a boss on either lane, wins them the game. They could go for a couple of nukes, wins them the game. They could go for some mercenaries as well, probably wins them the game. So SPT, they need to take insane risks in order to potentially stabilize or even just stay in the game. They need to go for a boss despite not being, you know, the safest point in time to ever do it, because they simply have to prevent it from eStar. They can't allow eStar to get any of those.
We see eStar X, he's already up here. He does have that Twilight
Archon ready? Twilight Archon?
Oh, and a couple. Oh, and
X,
then there's
please.
the judgment.
Okay.
Just for the disengage.
Yeah, this is probably it. This is probably
game.
it.
It's absolutely game. The core is going to go down.
I mean, it was close to impossible to hold for SPT. Let's face it. Let's be honest. But they certainly did try their best, and they end up going down 3-1 against eStar. Though the best team in China, proving why they're called this way, and without breaking a lot of sweats here, they actually managed to win in dominant fashion. Although Game 2 didn't really look so good from them, but I also think we can blame it partly on the technical difficulties that were going on. Don't you think, Cavalier?
Yeah, when your main tank is lagging and DCs like at least 3 to 4 times during a game, and the last one he ends up sliding into an entire
his
team,
own
and your
doom,
support dies to try and save him.
Right.
That's probably not a winnable game at that point. So eStar won literally every game they did in DC.
Yeah.
That's probably also not a great feeling to be super perfect team right now and be like, well, we won the game where they DC'd,